SQL Server Visualization Tools. In our previous nugget, I showed you how to integrate SharePoint in with your SQL Server so you could deploy reports there and allow users to view those reports. Well, in this nugget, I'm going to show you how to view those SharePoint reports. There's 3 different ways. 2 of them involve just going to a web browser and typing in a particular URL. And a 3rd way is by including the report as a web part. After we look at our reports through SharePoint, then I want to show you another tool called Pro Clarity. You can download an evaluation version of that from Microsoft's website, and essentially it's a really nice way of browsing through your different cubes. One of the big advantages it gives you over the Business Intelligence Development Studio is that you can navigate backwards and forwards in your history, so you can keep a history of all of the different charts that you've created. There's lots of options for creating charts, many different chart types, as well as customizing the chart properties. Then I'll show you how to export your Pro Clarity charts into either a PowerPoint or Excel spreadsheet, and then I'll show you how to save it into a book. Well, let's get started with consuming those SharePoint reports. In our previous nugget, we deployed reports and integrated it with SharePoint. Now we're going to consume it, and there's actually 3 different ways that we can consume this. The first way is by looking at rsviewerpage.aspx file. It's simply a URL that you go to, and you can get there by clicking on a link. I'll show you how to get there. The second way is by creating a web part page and just pulling that in through the web part. And the third way is to consume the report using the report server website. So I'll show you all 3 ways here. Remember, we performed the deployment on the server name, so in my case it's Julie1, and then I was on port 83. So here's my main reporting services test page. If I then drill down, remember earlier I created reports down here, okay, and I did deploy a couple other reports as well, but here's our customer report right here, and then we have some other reports. And if you deploy the whole project, you can even deploy a data source itself. So let's just take a look at our customer report right here. And what you'll see is when we go to this link, so pay attention to this link up here, you'll see that it says rsviewerpage.aspx and then some kind of parameters tacked onto the end of there. Here's our actual data. You can scroll down here. You'll see that there's a built-in navigation up here, so we can paginate. And what's cool about this is that under Actions, you can do several things. You can open this up with Report Builder if you want to. You can even subscribe to this. What this means is, anytime the report changes or creates a new snapshot, you can have an email shot out to you. So if you click on the subscription, you can say, you know what, I want this to go to julie@cbtnuggets.com. You can even do a copy, blind copy, reply to, and so on. Under the subject, notice this @sign. These are placeholders, so the subject will give the report name, and it will also give the execution time. By default, it gives the normal priority, and you can even put comments in here. By default, we include a link to the report, so when you receive the email, you can simply click on the link and it takes you right to the report. You can even show the report inside the message, or if you want to turn that off, you can just uncheck that. It's really up to you. And then the delivery event, there's 3 different choices. You can say when a report snapshot is created, or on some kind of shared schedule, or you can do a custom schedule. So if you stick with custom schedule, this is where you can configure and say, you know what, I want to do it, maybe every morning at 2 a.m. Okay? So maybe we do day like that, and you select your days. So maybe I just want this on weekdays at 2 a.m. You can even tell it when to stop running it. So if you want it only for the current year, you can do that as well. Okay, so you can hit OK to finalize that. I'm just going to hit cancel for right now. And hit cancel again right here. And other things you can do here with your report, if you go to your customer report again, you can export it to a file. For example, here, We can export to a comma delimited file. If I click on there, it will ask me whether I want to open it or save it. For right now, I'm just going to save it, and then I can open it up with the text editor. So I'll just save that right under my downloads, call it Customer Report 1. Okay, so now I can open this up with the text editor. And I just open this up here in TextPad, and here is my data. You can even open this up in Excel if you want to. It's entirely up to you. If you want to export this to a PDF, not a problem. You just select the PDF option. Now, since it's rendering this information behind the scenes, this might take a little bit longer compared to just a CSV dump. Okay, here we go. I'll go ahead and just open this directly instead of saving it. And here's our information. Okay, once again, it looks pretty nice, and it is paginated once again. So that's one way you can view your reports. Let's look at another way. I'm going to go back to my Reporting Services test right here. And under my Site Actions, I'm going to say Create. And right here under Web Pages, I'm going to create a web part page. Really, it's just a bunch of placeholders where I can pull in different parts of a web page. So I'm going to call this Customer Report Test. And you can choose to overwrite the file if it already exists. Be careful with that. You might accidentally clobber a file that you like. So here we have the different layouts. And what's cool about this is that as you click these different options, it shows you what it looks like. So if I take a look here, it's full page vertical. I don't really care for that very much. Let's take a look at maybe we have a header, footer, 2 columns and 4 rows, something like this. Okay, so I like that look and feel pretty much, so I'll just scroll down here. And under the Save location, I have 2 different choices here. I can put this under Reports or under Shared Documents. Let's put this under Shared Documents. And now I'll hit Create. Okay, so here's my header, here's my left column, my right column, and the different rows. I might choose to embed my report right here. Really, you can put it anywhere you want. It will have a slightly different look and feel depending on where you place it. But I'll say Add a Web Part, and I scroll down until I find my SQL Server Reporting Services Report Viewer. So I just click on that, and then you'll see there's this button that says Add, and you'll see that we now have a placeholder for it. Pretty cool, isn't it? You know, if you want to put other things in here, you can. For example, up in the header, if you say Add a Web Part, you can then choose to add maybe your logo header if you want to. For example, if you had an image that you wanted to add, you would put that right there and point to the image file. I'll hit Cancel for right now. Our focus here is on the reports. So taking a closer look at this, if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see that it says click here to open the tool pane. So let's go ahead and do that. And so now if I scroll over here, here's my tool pane, and you'll see that we have a little button with the ellipsis on here, and this is where we can choose which report we want to embed in there. So go ahead and click on that button right there. And you'll see that we don't have anything under Shared Documents, but you can hit this Up folder right here to take you up a directory. Now if you go down to Reports by clicking on that, you'll see that we have our 3 different reports. We're focusing on our customer report, so I'll click on here, and now it gives the appropriate URL. The hyperlink target by default is _top. Let's say you want it to open up a new browser window, you would replace this with _blank. Now let's go ahead and hit Apply. We're finished with this, and now we can view it in normal mode as opposed to edit mode. Okay, now that we're done there, notice that our report is showing up in here. We'll see it in its full force here in just a moment. If you scroll all the way over here, do you see this link that says Exit Edit Mode? Go ahead and click on that so we can see it in normal mode. And here we have our web page. Okay, so we have these scroll bars automatically in here for us, and we have the automatic navigation as well. let's say that you wanted to move the report to a new location within that web page. It's pretty easy to do. All you need to do is go back into Edit Page right here. And all you need to do is grab this web part right here and move it over there. You'll see how it's changing locations right here. Okay, you can move it around until you're happy with it. Once again, I'll go ahead and exit my edit mode. And here is my report again. Now, as I mentioned, there's yet another way of viewing this, and that's through the report server itself. So what you can do is simply go to your host name and then /report server, and it will take you to something that looks like this. Notice that you have a link to what you created earlier, the website you had earlier. And here is our reports right here, and then you can drill down directly like that. Give it a minute or two, depending on how large the report is. And there we go. Now, from here you can export just like you did before in all these different formats. And if you want to update the underlying data, you can always hit the refresh button right there. Okay, great. Now you understand how to consume the SharePoint reports. Let's now talk about our tool called Pro Clarity. Now, another visualization tool I want to show you is called Pro Clarity. You can download a trial version of it from Microsoft's website. And what you'll get when you download that is a file called eval Pro Clarity Desktop Professional. And you can just double-click on that zip file, and it will expand to this folder right here. Then you can go ahead and double-click on the setup. Just a warning, if you're running on Windows Vista, instead of clicking this setup, drill down to the desktop install, then to the install, and then click on setup. It's just one of those quirky things. Okay, so this visualization tool is going to allow us to drill down into a cube, and it's just a little bit more visual than the analytics service in the Business Intelligence Development Studio. And once you create those views, you can actually export them into PowerPoint or Excel, and you can save that view as well. So what Pro Clarity does is it taps into one of your existing cubes, or you can save it and make it local on within one of your directories. So what I want to show you right here is my Business Intelligence Development Studio, and we're going to be working with this cube called AdventureWorks DW 2008 right here. And here are the different dimensions there. So we're looking at the employee, reseller sales, product date, reseller, and sales territory. And you can see for our cube dimensions that we have the order date, due date, ship date, and so on. Okay, so what we can do is once you have installed Pro Clarity, you can go ahead and launch it. When you install it, it asks you if you want to create a desktop icon, and I said yes. So here we have our Pro Clarity splash screen. And it's going to give us three choices: our Pro Clarity Analytics Server, Cube for Browsing, or a local briefing book. Let's stick with Cube for Browsing, and it's going to ask us which cube we want to look at. So my server here is Julie1, and I'll hit OK. And here are all of the different cubes that I have processed. So the one that I want to hone in on is this guy right here, my AdventureWorks DW 2008-1, the one that I showed you in the Business Intelligence Development Studio. And what we're going to pay attention to, first of all, is this chart. You'll see that we have this one big ugly block that just says all, and this is just all the records when you combine all the different dimensions, and it's essentially a Cartesian product of the different slices. Now we have rows, columns, and background. Background is what we are measuring. So right here, these are all sales. And then for the rows, it's we're just showing the employee key and the gender, which is not exactly informative. I'm going to actually remove both of these, and we're going to change this up a little bit. What I want to do is display for the rows, I'm going to have the sales territory country, and for the columns I'll have the gender. So let me just open this up right here. Here's the country. We'll put that under rows, and for the employee we will grab the gender and drag this over there. Now as soon as we drag those over there, our chart doesn't change until we click apply. Okay, so here we have a nice graphical representation of what's going on. So you'll see here that we have really high sales for the United States. And what's really cool about this is that you can hover over any of these different countries and it will focus on that within the chart. This is helpful if you have, let's say, two different shades of blue that are very close to each other. It's easier to distinguish them from another. Also notice down here we have F for female and M for male. So it looks like the highest sales were for those that were men in the United States. Now, if you want to have more informative symbols here, instead of just F and M, maybe you want to have female and male, you can always go into your Business Intelligence Development Studio and create your own custom attributes using a case statement that translates F into female and M into male. Now, what if I wanted to display the country information as columns and the female and male as rows? Well, we can do that pretty easily. All you need to do is right-click on there and just say Pivot. So there we go. You can also change the chart type. So if you right-click on here and say Chart Type, maybe you want to change that to maybe a pie chart. Or you can right-click on here again and maybe you say an area chart. Let's look at one more chart type, and that's a horizontal bar chart. There we go. You can modify the chart properties. You can right-click on there, and here we have chart properties. You can specify these different types. You can also hone in on the legend and customize that. Maybe change the font if you want to. Change the axes as well as the title. If I click on here and say automatic, it will automatically show up as sales amount, or I might say sales amount by gender and country. Apply that and then hit OK. Now we have our customized title up there. Another important thing up here under Setup, if you click on Setup, it just gets rid of the stuff on the left-hand side so you can just focus on the chart. So it just toggles back and forth. If you click on Setup again, you get this area. If you want to hit your back button to go to previous charts, you can do that. So here I'm going to my area chart and then my pie chart, back to there. And what's really cool about this is that you can even export this. For example, if you want to go File, Export, let's export it to an Excel spreadsheet, not a problem. Now, this operation will erase the clipboard. It's just giving you a warning. Just say yes. Okay, so here is our exported chart in Excel. That looks pretty nice. And then, of course, you would want to go ahead and save that. Let's take a look at this in PowerPoint. If you say Export PowerPoint, and then it takes you through this little wizard, and we're just going to put this maybe under the temp directory. We'll call this my exported sales chart .ppt. It's doing its thing. It's generating the report. And now I'm going to just minimize this here and change this up a little bit. And here you can see the chart in PowerPoint. Looks pretty nice. Let's do an example of a decomposition tree. I'm going to just open up a cube right here. And once again, it's going to ask me for the cube I'm dealing with. I'm going to choose the same one, except this time I'm going to say decomposition tree. And it takes us through this nice little wizard. And it asks us, what do we want to analyze? Do we want to analyze sales amount or some of these other measures? I'm going to focus on sales amount. If I then want to drill down, let's say, to my reseller sales territory country, we can hit finish on there. And then when you click on there, you'll see that we have United States, Canada, and then the bottom four. Okay, so it focuses on the highest items here. And what's really cool about this is, let's say I want to drill down to the United States. I can right click on here and say drill down, and I can select what I want to drill down by. Okay, so I can click on that. Maybe I want to hone in on the product line. Okay, so I'll click product line right there. And now it tells us the breakdown right there. So the R category was 44%, the M category was 43%, and then the rest, the bottom three, was 13%. If I want to then right-click on any of these and then drill down to details, I can do that as well. And it'll just give us this little pop-up box, and it shows us all the records that appear in there. So what you're seeing right there is just the primary key. Once again, the R and the M, those symbols there, can be translated into the actual product line name by using a calculated attribute in conjunction with a case statement. Now, if you want to save this, you can just go to File and Save Book As, and it just gives us a warning here: books cannot be saved or sent unless they contain at least one page. Yes, we want to add the current view as a page, so we hit OK there. And the page will be saved in the current briefing book. Okay, so we can go ahead and just stick with the default there. And then you can give it whatever name you want to. And then later you can always open it back up and see those charts. Let's review what we learned in this nugget. With the SharePoint reports, I had you go to the central administration and then eventually drill down to the web application that was hosting your reports. Remember, there's 3 different ways of consuming a report that's been deployed to SharePoint. The first way is to simply click on the link within that website and it will take you to an ASPX file. The second way is by incorporating it into a web part page. So you're first of all going to define the layout of your page, and then there will be links in there where you can decide where you want to plug in the report part. And then the third way of consuming a report is by going directly to the report server itself and then clicking on the link. Then we took a look at our tool called ProClarity. Remember, it's a free trial download. Before you use ProClarity, you need to make sure that you've already processed some cube, most likely in your Business Intelligence Development Studio. Include whatever dimensions and measures you want in there. And then make sure that in the background portion you specify your measure. And then you specify which dimension attributes you want to include in your rows and your columns. Remember, you're going to have to refresh manually to see the changes in your chart. We performed an export in 2 different ways. We used Excel as well as PowerPoint. And remember, you can also save these books within your ProClarity environment so you can come back to it at some later point. Well, I hope this has been informative, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.